GM, everyone. It is the eve of July 4th, Independence Day. It's a it's an exciting time in America. It feels like crypto is finally entering the canon, uh, and at a time when the big beautiful bill just got passed, such that it seems like the U.S. dollar uh, is really going to be put to the test. Uh, there really is something exciting and special about working at the frontier of money, particularly fiat money and credit-based money. Uh, yeah, it's a great feeling. It feels like something special is happening in America, and it's not necessarily good for the dollar, but somehow it's all happening at once. So, with that as maybe a background to today's town hall, uh, the plan is similar to previous town halls or more recent ones. We're going to go around, hear a little bit about what the contributors that are here are currently up to and thinking about. Uh, and then we'll open it up to see if anyone has any questions or comments. And I may speak a little bit extemporaneously about what I'm looking at in the system at the moment. So, with that, why don't we turn it over to Frio? What are you working on at the moment? What are you thinking about? What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Still churning along with the convert bonus and the other upgrades to the system. But most of my week has been trying to revamp our organization in the back. So in practice, we're leveraging AI now to, analyze our meeting recordings. We have this application where we record our meetings and it creates a transcript and it auto generates tasks and keeps us very up to speed on what everyone's doing. Our end goal is that we're able to see blockers ahead of time before they happen. We're able to keep everyone up to sync, and we can hopefully reduce time for each contributor to help that time spent managing their own organization. Basically this AI will serve as an assistant to everybody. So very excited on how things have played out, and hopefully this will manifest to more productive hours out of the day.
Awesome. Uh, Care to share more about which tools are being used and why those tools are being used? I'm very curious personally.
Yeah, I mean, for our meeting transcript, we use Granola. Granola is great because I found its transcription and meeting notes to be very helpful. But in general, the meta before recently was that we record all our meetings, but accessing that information was very hard. And we put them in a Notion. That's been our general like task organizer board. But I found that many a times, even with the AI having transcripts, it's still very hard to access information. So, you know, there's been a lot of AI tools recently. I've been using Cloud Code, which is a generalized CLI tool, and leveraging what's called MCPs, which are these connectors to services, which you can add to your own AI. And basically, what you can do now is that within your own LLM, you can permit it to access and write information on your Notion. So, for example, you know, ever since I've integrated Notion into my LLM, I'm able to ask it, what is my task for this week? What's the progress of one of the contributors? You know, when do we plan to launch this feature, and are we on pace? Whereas before that wouldn't be really possible. So yeah, really the main tools are just Cloud Code and Cloud Desktop. Cloud Desktop also has this capability, which is great. I mean, it's interesting for me to see the position of each AI company. It seems like Anthropic is really leaning on to the developer experience. I found it to be the furthest along in that. Like the friction to start these integrations have been very low from my experience.
Very cool. Thank you for all that information. And are you already experiencing an improvement, or like what's the payoff so far? And how much more is there to go before we get the payoff, or like how much of the benefits have we already started to get, and how much is the rate of progress in what we're using? Are we experiencing any sort of like growth in the quality of the models already, or just because we just started, we don't have that type of data?
Yeah, I think it just started. I mean, personally, I'm the only one in the team that's leveraging it to this degree. Hopefully, as more people in the team leverage it more and more, we'll kind of see the network effect. I found that the initial starting point with AI is very, very rough. But as it, go with more time, as it writes more notes and as it writes more pages, it's able to self-reference itself very, very well. Uh, immediate improvements for me were after a meeting, for me, uh, her, and default juice. The AI was able to generate tasks for these guys, and we set timelines, set tags, set labels, and organize the Notion without me doing anything, right? And that saves time on my end as a project manager when I could be working on, protocol things, for instance. So that's probably like an hour or two of my time. And just having that workload off my brain, off my subconscious, I think is very, very helpful. Hopefully in the future, we explore even more capabilities. And yeah, where that takes us. But right now, in the early stages, there is no, I wouldn't say there's little, or there's probably little benefit right now, but it should compound over time. I totally expect in the next 1 to 2 weeks, or maybe, they're definitely after a month, you should see significant improvements in our rate of progression.
Awesome. That's very exciting.
Even
Particularly,
a not project manager level, I found the other greatest strength is that we're able to ramp up very quickly. Default Juice, for instance, was not classically trained in data analysis, but with his help as AI, he was very quickly able to get data for us to analyze for the converted out bonus. That would have taken weeks. Now that took a day. I'm able to help fix features on the UI without significant effort. That would have taken a couple of days on my end. Now it takes an hour. We've done let's say I think 10 minor upgrades to minor, or at least I guess a step above minor, not too major, but a couple or pretty substantive upgrades with very little effort. So I found that to be very helpful on that end. And hopefully we can continue the flow where me and Default Juice can assist in the front end. Historically, a lot of our resources were kind of constrained on the front end, not because of the quality of our developers, but because very high. There's just so much work to do. So hopefully we can offload the low level efforts away, and they really focus on what's the highest priority. I'm super excited on that as well.
very cool stuff. Thank you for all that information, Priya. I feel like the direction that development of really complex software is heading is going to be lean and mean teams that are enabled by the AI to do a lot of really cool shit. But it doesn't feel like we need that many people to do really tremendous stuff at this point, even though the system that we're operating with is very complex.
Yeah, agreed.
Pinto Pirate, how are you doing, sir? What's on your mind? What have you been chefing up?
GM. What have I been chefing? Oh boy. Well, we got some new data points, some new charts that will be coming very soon. They're actually currently in review, the code for them as of yesterday. And I think I've spoken about them on one of the previous town halls, but it's essentially a way of measuring how, and actually putting numbers on it for how the crypto market performance has affected Pinto in terms of the non-Pinto portion of the liquidity. So that's the WETH the CB, Bitcoin, etc. And it's really interesting to see like just kind of how those changes compound over time, like, from the highs to the lows of like the actual token prices, but then also like compared to how much liquidity we had in the system at that time. So we can see like kind of how different percent changes at different times corresponded to different changes in the value of that non-Pinto. So, like a 10% change would be, obviously a bigger change if there was more liquidity at that time. So yeah, that's pretty interesting, but especially being able to line that up. I haven't taken too much time to do the analysis of this because like I kind of just finished it up yesterday, but on the on the everything data page as well, you can, stack this information up against all those other different data points. So like it'll be possible to, look at how it affected other things like the Pinto price or different, maybe different converts that were happening or different like withdrawals or whatever. And just really like getting a sense of, I mean, it really like ultimately what the goal is, I guess, is when there's changes in the Pinto price or the Pinto liquidity, being able to attribute those changes to like what was actually happening in the system. And it seems like now like this was kind of the last big thing that was missing to really perform a lot of that detailed analysis. So I'm definitely curious what people will take away from it, and what things people will end up analyzing, how they'll stack the charts.
Oh yeah! Wow, what an update! This has been something that I know I've been asking you for quite a while. So I may be the most excited person about this update. Although with the energy you said GM, it might be that you're even more excited. So really, really cool stuff. I was checking out the PR earlier today. Really can't wait to get all that information out there, and can't wait to really play with it myself. And that maybe next town hall will be the meat of what I'm talking about with respect to the protocol. Really, really cool stuff. And that everything chart is really, to your point, this is really like the last missing meat in order to really like do some deep analysis as to what's been happening season by season. So really, really cool stuff, Pinto Pirate. Thank you very much for that update.
Totally.
Dintecito, how are you doing, sir? What are you cooking up? What's on your mind?
Hey guys, just trying to get some more content out. Uh, Hopefully we can continue to improve it in the medium term. So just posted an article this week as part of our just sort of trying to make Pinto legible tour series, explaining the different options that people have to get into the system below the value target. Have another one, which should be probably the final one in the series at this point, about the pod marketplace, which should be ready to publish next week. And been doing a lot of research recently. Hopefully, we'll be coming out with a more critical piece, collaborating with another contributor on that one. Trying to
Did anyone else
talk
lose
about.
Dintecito, or is that just me?
Can you guys hear
You
me?
can hear him.
I can hear
Yeah, I can.
Where did I lose
Yeah.
you, Ben? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but I think I glitched out for the past 30 seconds. But I'd still appreciate it if you repeated it.
Sure. Well, I talked about the article that we posted this week. I think the final tour of the farm article will come out next week or the week prior, but it's basically ready. And then I just said that I'm thinking about developing some more rigorous pieces in the medium term, one of which has we've started to sketch out in collaboration with Mod. But I think it was going to need some more research, speaking more about arguing for fiat money and its validity, and doing so on trustless rails. So looking forward to hopefully coming up with some more thought-provoking pieces and helping contributors to do that in the medium term. I've personally been doing some research to get more into the sauce of the values of what we're trying to do. I mean, I of course can speak more about that if you think it's appropriate, but in terms of just producing at this point, we're going a little slower.
Sure. I mean, feel free to share whatever you're keen to about the values work you've been up to.
I mean, working with another contributor to try to make definitions and compile relevant research for all of the values and properties that we expect from the technology within crypto, and compiling relevant readings, documents, and hopefully developing a corpus of knowledge that we can use to actually start to lead the conversation, to have our team being able to express their opinions and paint the picture for people about how this stuff is all going to look in the long term, not just with Pinto, but with other projects as well. What is the thing that we're building? What do we demand from our tech? What are the manifestations of that? And what is actually going on? How has it been implemented in practice across trustlessness, censorship resistance, privacy, and permissionlessness, and more? So, I mean, generally understand that everybody is throwing out a lot of buzzwords and talking about leading, and they're a cool new thing that actually doesn't do very much. And trying to understand for myself and hopefully be able to support people to develop rigorous content, including you. So I know that you've been talking about some interesting ideas. I wonder if you'd be willing to share a little bit about them, but starting to put our hat in the ring as a real leader of this conversation, people who are thinking seriously. And definitely one thing I appreciate about this team and this project is a commitment to first principles. So I think it's helpful if we can be rigorous in that sense.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like one of the guiding lights throughout the past 5 years, 4-ish years, I guess, in public, since we published the Beanstalk white paper, has been an adherence to first principles. And at this point, it feels like the best way to get people to take our work seriously, despite the fact that experimenting with money, credit-based money with endogenous value, it's a very risky business. Per the talk that I just gave in Com this week, it feels like a risky business we must engage in because of the existential threat that our space currently is facing from centralized stablecoins. And so, to me, doing this work of really trying to rigorously define what we're talking about and what it means in the context of the technology that we're building, so that we can engage with other teams critically, seems to be maybe not necessary, but clearly the best option for us to try to make everyone pay attention to this work. So, very exciting update. Hopefully, when do you think people are going to start to see some of the output of this stuff? You think it's the next couple of months, or what are the timelines for people that are paying attention and listening?
Well, I think the first place you're going to see this manifest is going to be on some Nebula related content, which I know you mentioned in your talk at Con, but haven't shared much about with the Pinto Discord, which is really exciting. You should start seeing some definitions within the next week or two, which we're very proud of. But some more thought-provoking and opinionated content relating to that research should come out within the next couple months, hopefully a bunch of it, relating to different topics. I know Maud had a lot of really interesting thoughts about his article. So I think once we get a better sense of the scope, we can make sure that we have the resources to back it up. These ideas are very abstract, and I think it's the more we can make it real for people, the better. So I think there's going to be a big couple months in terms of content production across people that we're working with.
I think my service dropped for the last 5 seconds or so of that, but I think this all makes a lot of sense, and yeah, excited to start putting out some content. The more that we are able to rigorously define what we're talking about, the better. So, thank you for all that information, Pintasito.
Sure. My last few seconds was just to say, hopefully, it's a big couple months in terms of our using our voice.
Beautiful. Floyd Rainweather, how are you, sir? What are you up to? What are you cooking up? What's on your mind?
I'm doing great, brother. How have you been, man?
Quite well, quite well. It's been a great week coming to Con to talk at Stable Summit, and now ready to celebrate July 4th. What about yourself?
On my end, I've been heads down into working on the landing page. There's a very heavy process of feedback and updates going on, which is quite exciting, really. And as a whole, the entire engineering team has really taken a very big step forward in terms of productivity and organization. There's been some massive changes in how things are structured and organized, and it's been really nice to see. And I think the results are starting to speak for themselves, really. There's been some massive fixes in the UI, and they're being shipped very, very quickly. We got these new some changes to the pod market page that are coming up thanks to Sage of the Silos. Huge shout out there, amazing work. And honestly, like, work is moving at an incredible pace as of the past couple weeks. The whole team has really stepped up a notch, and it's been a huge pleasure to be a part of it.
Wow, what an update! Thank you for all that information. So when do you think this pod marketplace update is going to come out?
Honestly, I would say it's a matter of hours, really. It seems pretty much ready to go, just going through the final checks. And yeah, it's great stuff. Some really awesome work there. I think everyone's gonna love to see it.
Wow, very cool. Very, very cool stuff. Thank you for all that. And great to hear that the productivity is picking up. Curious how much of that you attribute to the AI setup that Frio's been working on.
I would say, yeah, that's a pretty significant reason why. Honestly, a lot of time used to be spent just on um, like getting things written down, like so we can have a reference for later. And the way that we are using AI it's a very clever way because AI is really good at this, like summarizing large amounts of data, right? So the way we use it, we just give it all the data that we have written, all the meetings that we have made over the week or over the day, and it just summarizes everything, assigns tasks to everyone, and that just saves a lot of time. It's just a lot of time that we can now spend developing instead of just like updating Notion boards and doing all this busy work that is now fully automated. So it's been super awesome.
That's great to hear. Yeah, really exciting stuff. I feel like the more that we can accelerate the UI and getting like a really smooth experience across the board. Obviously, the protocol itself is so complex. And for example, like with all this information now that Pinto Pirate's made available, there's an open question like, how can we really bring all of the relevant information to a user to their fingertips and guide them to make educated decisions in such a complex system? And I feel like now, given the way that we're able to accelerate the pushing of new product on the front end, it feels like we're going to have an opportunity to really make this accessible to people. I feel like the complexity of the system is truly at an all-time high. And on the one hand, if you go way back to like the early Publius recordings, we talked a lot about simplicity and how the protocol is designed to be as simple as possible. And I think at the same, like that is still true today. But the more that we've learned about the system and the incentive structures of the system, the more that there just has to be improvements. And the system is still generally as simple as possible or very close to it, while solving all of the problems that have been discovered so far while running this thing out in the wild. But the result is, I feel that the current UI doesn't really make it accessible even to the more curious people, unless you're really willing to dive in deep and just self-educate. It doesn't feel like there's that flow to really teach people the rules of the road and the ebbs and flows of the system. And so I'm very inspired by the new pace of output on the front end to really see what we can do to revamp the whole experience. So very exciting update from you, Floyd, and looking forward to collaborating on this continuous UI improvement stuff. Very exciting stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And these big UI updates to the UX that we are planning are going to be the really big test to this new workflow that we are doing. But I'm very, very optimistic that things are going to be very, very dynamic, and we're just gonna ship really fast.
Awesome. Very exciting stuff. So now that we've heard from the contributors that are here on this call, I'm going to leave it open to see if there's anything on anyone's mind that they want to bring up or toss out there. We'll leave it open, and then we'll, depending on how we're doing on time, talk about what's been on my mind as well. Going once. Going twice. All right. One thing I will say about these town halls is I wish we had more non-contributor participation, which I'm curious what people think we have to do to make these town halls more engaging for people such that they want to come and listen and participate. Curious if anyone has any thoughts there.
I mean, I'll just gonna my 2 cents. I'd be curious to hear you talk about the price movement recently and where you see that going. Maybe we should
Sure.
ask people what we would, what would help them to be interested in coming to the town halls.
Yeah, I'm very interested in like a poll or something, or like a survey. Yeah, I wonder if that's we should figure out who should do that. All right. To answer your question, Quintecito, about the price action, Frio, can you remind me when we push the fix to the field?
About 3 weeks now. Every 2 weeks. 18th of June.
Fascinating. Okay, so with that as the context, the sowing activity in the field has been pretty consistent. There was that initial order that was the thing that discovered the inefficiency in the field that elapsed on, it looks like the 29th, based on the data. And within a day or two, another order from a different wallet that was like twice as large in terms of number of Pinto was sown. And interestingly, the price action that we saw on the 29th was from the wallet that ended up placing the sow. And so generally, this is, and since then we've seen a couple more converts, and the price has gone up to now the mid 80s. And this is generally in line with what we had hoped for around the repair of the field, if you will, where we had speculated that people were in general not sowing, and the inability to sow might also have a negative effect on people's willingness to convert. Now, I think for that thesis to really play out, the behavior that we would expect to see in theory would be like someone placing the tractor order and then waiting to convert until after the tractor order expires, such that they can sort of like guarantee or increase the likelihood that they're going to get to sow whatever they want to sow. So in this case, that didn't play out, but the idea that wallets that were waiting to sow were also waiting to convert, we at least have one data point on that front. And it'll be interesting to see if additional tractor orders are placed in the coming weeks, and to what extent those new tractor orders for the field come with conversions, either before or after the field, the tractor order is placed. So that's really been an interesting thing to play out. It took a little while for the price to pick up. Like, we did see the price go down from around 80 to the low 70s, even after the fix was made. So it's not like it was a one-to-one correlation where as soon as the fix was made, the price started to rally. But it's still probably a little too early to call, like, oh yeah, fixing the field, the towards peg movement has, that's definitely happening again. But it was a strong first couple of weeks, I would say. And particularly now that there's this other order in the field, it seems like the field is getting activity. I think the cultivation factor is still increasing such that the tractor order, is continuing to increase the amount of, I guess, Pinto is continuing to increase the amount of soil in the field every season to meet the demand of this order. So it'll be interesting to see whether other orders come in now. It's a very exciting time. The market itself seems to be pretty hot, and so that's a positive tailwind for things. It doesn't necessarily always translate, but it's been I think the price action, particularly over the past week, has been very positive generally. Curious if that answered your question, Pentacita.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely good color to see that it's a little early for us to know whether or not there is a true causation effect between upgrade that we made to the field and the price movement. I mean, one question that I've been getting is like, how is this flywheel really gonna get going such that there's prints? I know that's such a common question, but be curious if you had any new thoughts on that, or where you stand on that at this point.
Well, the went with Beanstalk was that Paul would figure out a way to return the price to the peg. And there were various ways that played out. Like the first major debt cycle, there was an NFT sale. So the price went to 24 cents, and there was like an NFT campaign to try to generate buzz. And that ultimately did create enough momentum to return the price to the value peg. There were no converts at that point in time. But the point was that there's a difference between returning to the value peg, or now the value target, and starting to actually have a positive flywheel of growth. Typically, we would expect that the protocol would probably spend at least a month or two at the value target, or previously the value peg, before the system would really be saturated enough such that more demand would cause the system to actually really start to print and grow. The reality is that after a major dead cycle, there is a lot of converters and potentially just participants that may be in the pod line, for example, that are very eager to get out. And before it seems like there's going to be any sort of major prints, like you'd expect most of the pod harvest to sell, or at least a large percentage of them. And so with that being said, I think there's a difference between some sort of snowball in the field and or the silo to return the price to the value target, and like the network effect or a growth cycle flywheel, as you asked about. So right now, still our focus is on trying to, in the case of the field, fine tune the snowball effect that was put in place a couple months ago. And obviously with the introduction of Tractor orders in the field, that's caused some new information, which has taken us some time to fix. But now it seems like there's efficacy there. And now we're going to get data on how the snowball actually works in the field. And then separately, we have the conversion Tractor stuff, along with a convert bonus system being deployed hopefully in the next couple months. Not sure exactly on the timing there. Frio may be able to comment there more on the timing. But the point is, we are introducing a sister mechanism to the field snowball, to the silo. And we hope that the combination of the two is sufficient to return the price to the value target if the protocol doesn't do it already with just the field mechanism in place. So, and I use the word hope maybe a little bit sarcastically, because the mechanism is generally highly sophisticated and we're very excited and expect it to have a positive effect. But of course, in our system, it's all about how it works in practice. So all we can do is hope that the incentives that are created actually create the expected user behavior. So maybe sarcastic isn't the right word, like a little bit in jest. So that's to me, the way that I think about it is, right now we're focused on creating a snowball to the value target, and then it'll probably hit flat ground. The snowball will hit flat ground for a couple months, and then we'll see what happens. Like maybe the protocol generates enough of a small yield to start just gently creating a flywheel, like very organically, or maybe once the protocol demonstrates real efficacy at returning to the value target, someone apes in a bigger amount, and then the protocol just starts to print. Like both have happened in the past with respect to Beanstalk. So I think it's generally an open question how exactly things are going to play out. Like, will the snowball in the field be sufficient, or do we need to wait till the convert bonus system is implemented? Will that even work? Like the path to the exact path in our return to the value target is unclear. And then separately, once we're there, it's unclear how long we'll spend at the value target. It's unclear if we'll dip back below it. Like maybe someone has been holding out hope under the impression that as soon as we hit the value target, we're going to start printing. And then when they realize that's not the case, they're going to dump and then we're going to go back down. Like this stuff isn't linear. So we don't know exactly how it's all going to go down. But I would expect some time at the value target before anything big happens in terms of a flywheel.
So thanks a lot.
Frio, care to comment on the timelines there?
Yeah, I mean, the convert bonus backend code is very close to being finished, but there seems to be quite a process on getting the front end. Currently, we're in the process of designing the convert order book, and then we need to implement it. And my hope is with AI, we can kind of speed that up. But we found personally that having the backend code without the front end to support it kind of leads to a lack of data. When we saw the cultivation factor deployed, we saw very minimal usage of the new field until we had tractor enabled. So I would rather have, or I guess delay the deployment of the back end to kind of better time it with the front end deployment, especially if we, over time we think of further improvements to the convert bonus. I personally have found some insights as I just mull about it day by day, and have some edge cases we fix here and there. So I found great benefit of not rushing the process, at least on the back end. Now, as we get closer towards a final product, that's all subject to change. But I wouldn't say 2 or 3 months. I would say more 1 to 2 months. 2 months is pretty conservative. So yeah, maybe like 1, 2, or I guess 1, but edging with 2 is my guess.
Awesome. Very exciting. This is a feature we've talked about quite a lot, so I'm very excited to see it out in the wild. But 1 to 2 months sounds awesome. I guess, then if we go back to what I was saying to Pintacito, or in response to Pintacito's question, it's like, I would guess then that there's going to be a lot of data about the field snowball independently before this convert snowball gets implemented. So I don't know how that's going to affect our return to the value target exactly, but it seems like the field is going to have to do more of the lifting.
Thanks.
What other questions do people have? Well, we've already, in response to the questions, I feel like I've commented on a lot of what I wanted to comment on. But one thing I will say is, even with the price returning to the mid 80s, the lack of outflows is very encouraging. Now, something that I think is very noteworthy is that there's still a tremendous amount of liquidity in Wrap Sol, which is a little bit perplexing from the perspective that it literally has like no seeds right now. And so, yeah, it's like, I don't know if people really want Solana exposure. It's definitely strange what's happening there. So, PSA, if you're holding Pinto Wrap Sol, you're getting like no grown stock right now. So it's it's a little strange that it's the largest LP right now, given that it has no seeds. So I don't know what to make of that per se. It is interesting that there is no other Wrap Sol liquidity really on base. So as I understand it, it seems like right now it's very hard to convert from Pinto Wrap Sol to other LP tokens. So you're really only forced to go from Wrap Sol to Pinto. So it could be that people really like don't want to convert, but don't want they can't convert to the other LPs. Like that's a potential thing, but it's still a little strange. Like if you're earning no grown stock, I'd expect you to want to convert. So that's something I'll be watching over the next couple weeks to see how much people are continuing to hold the Pinto Wrap Sol, given that now there's no seeds. Separately, I heard a discussion about a minimum seeds per LP. Leo, do you know anything about that?
Yeah. I don't know if minimum seeds is the right term, but minimum gauge points.
Mm. I wasn't
Yeah.
up to speed on the discussion, so maybe you could enlighten.
Well, it's just not even like it's an idea of like having caps on, because the thing is one of the updates is that the gauge points moving forward is going to be normalized. Uh, so it's there's a current problem where it's very the rate in which a asset can go to zero increases more or less. So one solution is to add a very low minimum, but open to see if we are agree with that or not.
Interesting. Yeah, that seems like maybe a little bit of a longer discussion, but yeah, interesting question.
I mean, there's also a question of having a max. I mean, I think that there are two different arguments, but yeah, in the current, just having the normalized system right now creates a effect where things quickly, like the seeds quickly converge into one asset. So
Hmm.
we need some way to kind of prevent that. The interesting thing with the gauge system right now is that we normalize stuff in terms of PDV. So you have to kind of think of the gauge points normalized to the PDV itself. Like, let's say Pinto Ref Sol has 1,000 gauge points, and Pinto Ref CB ETH has 1,000 gauge points. Just naturally speaking, because the percent of optimal deposited PDV of Pinto Ref CB ETH is 12.5%, whereas Pinto Ref Sol is 25%, is a higher like seed that the CB ETH can get, even though because it has a lower optimal deposited PDV. So that's one.
Yeah, I mean that's in many ways the beauty of the gauge system is that there is no like definite price. It's all just a relative price. I guess with respect to the min and max, I feel like the max makes less sense because the max to me feels like it's implied by the crop ratio. So I guess if we're normalizing it, we probably don't need like a hard max anyways. And then with the min, it's an interesting question.
Wait,
I
why
mean,
is
it's a
that what you
curious.
want to max? Or do we want to discuss it another time? We have 4 minutes left.
Well, yeah, maybe this is a chatter for a dev call or something.
I'm happy to stay on for a
So-
little long. I just want to respect people's time if people have stuff to do.
No, I think you're probably right. I think we're better off doing that in a dev call. Okay, so to wrap things up, the only other thing I think that is worth mentioning is the L2SR did dip below the excessively low threshold. And Frio, do you want to talk about the externality from that?
Yeah. Pinto defines certain liquidity thresholds in which it considers itself excessively low, reasonably low, and reasonably high, excessively high. And the low threshold is 12%. When the system is in this excessively low threshold, the crop ratio gradually starts decreasing. So, when the system dipped below that 12% briefly, the seeds started changing as a result of that.
Yeah, so I guess maybe externality was the wrong word, but inadvertently, or maybe it wasn't inadvertent, but we learned that the parameterization of the system wasn't necessarily ideal, because as soon as we dipped below the L2SR, the excessively low L2SR, the crop rate started to drop. And I think what we discovered was that had the potential to reset the field snowball. Is that right?
Why would it reset the field snowball?
Well, wasn't there something that you suggested that we change the rule around resetting the cultivation factor?
No, we were talking about the convert factor, the convert bonus. Like currently, the convert bonus is a function of the crop ratio, and the initial rule was that if the crop ratio was below 100%, the bonus would disappear. And then we saw the case where the system dipped below 12%, but it is still substantially below its value target. And I was pondering a situation where, let's say both snowballs are in effect, particularly the convert snowball, and the system dips below 12% and crushes the snowball as a result of it. Feels like an inefficiency there.
Definitely. So this is something that we fixed as a result of this observation. So that's maybe to your point about moving slow and steady, that is the place that we find ourselves in. The protocol seems to be doing its thing. We are getting a lot of data. And at this point, the convert bonus and tractor implementation to support it are really the last major updates to the peg maintenance system, other than parameterizing it, that we foresee in the near future from an economic perspective. And so, yeah, I think slow and steady is the way forward here. So that maybe is the message of the day, is slow and steady is going to win this race. And it seems like the protocol is doing its thing, and slowly the price is returning to the value target. And so at this point, the main thing that we need to do is make sure that the changes that we make are implemented as safely as possible. So thank you for your diligence, in particular, Frio, on this stuff. I know you've got a laser eye at reviewing all this stuff at the moment. So thank you very much. All right. We are a little bit over time here. So I think I'm going to just check, see if there's anything else that people want to mention real quick before we wrap up, and then wrap this bad boy up. Going once, going twice. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. Thanks for all
Thanks,
the
guys.
updates and questions. Talk soon.
Thanks.